you saying?
I don't even know. But I think the last thing I was just saying was it's the level of, I guess, the influence of society we're living in. Even when you do see glimmers of what it should be, even though it isn't, in alignment and everything isn't in place, like father in place, mother in place, children. We tend to see that and still think, because I was saying, yeah, that's,
right.
A great example. It's something good, And I mean, maybe for one family, because one of the women, she has everything in place. The husband's there, they're building, they have businesses together, more than one, so it's,
But see, the thing is, if those children are not interacting with other children in similar form, like who have fathers, then it's still just poison. That's why, again, if you look at healthier communities, I know I use that phrase a lot, but you find that there are families that interact, and if you don't have certain things, you're just not allowed inside of the community. There's not all this room made for what doesn't work, and all these excuses for what's not working. Either you do what's healthy for us, or what you do is harmful, and we can't allow you to be present. It's very similar, like, I remember I was told this once from a older woman who claimed, to be Jewish, and she was saying, she was very open and honest in some ways, and she said, a lot of times when you see interracial situations, like when you see a Jewish man with a black woman, she said it's because he doesn't have any money. So she said, basically he's ostracized from our community. So he'll get with a black woman. But she was like, that's the only time that really happens. She was just speaking, old people, they really don't care as much. They speak a little more honestly. And she was like, oh yeah, my brother did that. He was so poor. He had nothing he ever did work. He was lazy. So he went and got himself a colored girl. She used the term colored.
And she did.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's like if certain things don't work, we can't allow you to be here if you're not doing the things that actually work for us in our advancement.
There's a standard.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go back to what we were saying. Maybe that helped, because I know now you're nervous.
All over the place.
Yeah. Nervous all over the place.
Yeah.
Arms crossing and everything.
Pretty soon I'll forget it's there.
Okay. I don't know to put everybody on camera. But it's a new day, right? We got to start doing things different. We were talking about harmony.
Yeah.
And we were talking about unity and the importance of harmony, right?
Yes.
Basically, we're talking about the 14 keys and stuff. But yeah, it's like, in harmonizing, each one is aware of their note and the importance of their note and how it corresponds to others' notes. Like, the correspondence is key. If you look at the Hermetic laws, it's the law of correspondence. It's like you have core, which is that inner, your core, and then span, which means, to bring together or union. So, that correspondence is when your inner core connects with my inner core. Your inner genius or your inner truth. That's really what a correspondence actually is. So we can't correspond with each other or create that unity if we're not aware of the shape and form of our own inner core.
And that culture shapes that.
The culture lets you know how important it is, but it helps you to identify your markers. Like sometimes, like young people, for instance, they have intelligence in certain areas that are just not measured based on what this culture requires of them. But if you're operating within a culture that wants the whole being and the whole person, and there's a place for everything, if you're a dancer, dance is seen as sacred. If you're funny and you're a comedian, the griot role, the ability to speak to people and to recite and to see detail, that's all a comedian does. They see details that we miss and then tell them back to us and it becomes funny. But the ability to do that becomes a sacred thing. Even those who are a little off and see reality from different perspectives become priests and priestesses. They take the whole person, you know. So if you're in a healthier culture that speaks to your own physiology, then as your own natural and inbred things start to come forward, your culture has an answer. But if you're inside of an alien culture and those things come forward, it's like, well, we have nothing for that. Let's just cut it off. We can't use that. We have no use for that. You know, like being an empath in Western culture. What do you get for that? You know.
Probably based on your response, maybe you probably separate you.
Usually.
Maybe label you as overly sensitive.
Usually. Yeah, that's what usually happens.
Or think you have a serious mental issue.
Right. Because you hear things and you feel things that are not really there based on someone's standard. Although psychology is a study of things that are not really there, that you can't see and put your finger on. But that's completely acceptable. It's even named after a Greek god, Psyche. But it's okay, it's acceptable. You know. But culturally, it's okay.
So then it makes it difficult for that person to find a space in that society.
Right.
Where they can say, okay, I have a role and therefore I can resonate with another, so I can fulfill a level of harmony. Because that, you know, whatever I can do is recognized.
Right.
And identified. And you know, you will reverence it in some way. If it's not, it's suppressed, then I can't integrate with a community because I don't have anything to offer. That you recognize.
That you recognize, exactly. And then you have times where people think they have something to offer that they really don't. You know, so they think there's something that they're really not. You know, the community hasn't really proven you as that. You just jumped up one day and gave yourself a title. That's the end of it. But within it, you know, like, so I say, you find your character within the context of a community. You know, what you're marking. Well, your marking is going to be unique. You know, that's why many people who jump up and claim to be leaders and stuff, usually there's no community around them. You know, they form the community around the character that they say they are. Because you may jump up and, let's say if I jump up and I decide to emulate Amos Wilson, you know, or Asa Hillier, or even Dr. Ben. We already have that character. So now the community will see, no, that's not the one we need. We already have that puzzle piece. What are you? I may be something that I don't want to be. You know, my specialty may be custodial arts, and I just don't feel comfortable with that.
Is the society or the community you're functioning in respecting custodial? Would it respect it at all?
Right.
Give credence to the role that it plays in maintaining the community. Because if it doesn't, then you wouldn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to embrace it.
Well, there's some things that we do for recognition. It's like an artist. You have almost 3 forms of like artistic discovery. Like you have things that you do because you want to be known for doing them, you know, and then you have things that you do because, like say if you're writing a story, because you focus really on the characters themselves and you want that archetype of that character to be made known and to come out and to be seen by the world. And then you have the story. You want the story to be made known and made seen. So there's different reasons why we do things, but most people don't do things for the art of it. That's part of the problem. And you can't judge art, whether you respect it or not. It's art. You can't judge that. Like spirituality is an art. You know, loving someone is an art. it's not to be judged. It's not to be measured. Oh, I respect it, I don't respect it. Well, the universe is producing new kind of archetypes every day. And what someone else came to do, I don't understand it. I'm not supposed to understand it because I didn't come as them. I came as me. There's people who take things like broken glass and make the most beautiful works of art with it. Is that a form of custodial arts? Custodian over what you threw away. Something that, came from sand and all this work went into making this bottle and you just threw it to the side. I'm a custodian and a curator of the earth and of this whole sacred process of glass and sand and the earth. Language is an important thing.
What?
The children about to run the video.
You could never tell what they're gonna do next.
Right. Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm on edge. They might knock the
when
camera.
they come around, I stand because it's kind of like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you go.
Right. And, their parents never say anything. They'll come knock the camera over, they won't say anything.
So when you said that spirit was like an art, can you say more about that? Spiritism.
It's your teaching. You know a lot of stuff.
Stuff. Not how spirituality is an art. I guess because it's an expression of how people relate to nature and each other. So it's not necessarily.
Well, think about what a body is, right? By definition, a body is a defined encasement that holds something that would otherwise be an abstraction. So that means a body holds things that are not real. It's abstract. It's not even there. So the spirit is not really even there because you're just like the things that define themselves into bodies and whatnot are nothing but focused thoughts. Thoughts are not really there. They're an abstraction. But if you focus hard enough and you focus long enough, it becomes something. So art is that spirit. So it's fluid. It's there, but it's not really there. It's an abstraction from what's defined. So it always has the potential to move in directions, and it has infinite potential until you put it inside of a body. My thought can be anything until I decide to make it a painting. Now it won't be a work of music. It won't be a sculpture. It won't be a child. It won't be the way I dress that day. It will be the painting of the body.
I know you spoke about in terms of like the women's group and maintaining that level. How will that happen? In connection with the men's group, because I know you said there has to be a balance in terms of some sort of interaction, or is it just the women and their families and the men in their family offering sufficient support, or is there a necessity for both the woman and the man's group to also interact and create and do things?
Well, how do we create things? So you already know the answer to that one. but we're so afraid to do that.
But no, I'm saying, I guess it goes back to what we were talking about before, not being able to hold that respect and be able to see each other in a certain way. When you were talking about, how you, I was about to say hail someone, how you greet someone.
Right.
And then within that greeting, you know how the course of that discourse will go, or your interaction will go, basically. So is the lack of that impedes the ability to come together and not know how to work together. I don't know if I'm making sense.
I understand you.
I hope so.
I always understand. So the lack of that ability to, it's really protocol. The lack of protocol doesn't impede our ability to come together as a people. Absolutely. Because what am I coming together with? What am I connecting with? And then now we live in a culture in the West where sexual protocol is being removed. And that's the primary way that we connect with each other. Even man to man, men know how to interact with one another. They know how to shake hands with each other, and they size each other up in every moment. Even friends, we size each other up. If I ever have to fight, what would I do? And with a woman, there's always that tension, that like slight sexual tension that's supposed to be there to help drive things forward. So, the lack of that, it hinders unity. Absolutely. Like I said, there's different greetings that we have, based on someone being of a certain age, their sex. If you're greeting a woman who's older, you say one thing. Greeting a man who's older, you say one thing. We're talking about in our cultural languages. Someone of your same age group, even someone who's younger. All the greetings are different. And each one then sets the perceptual framework of what the contract is that you're going to hold between you and that person. But like you were saying, if everything is generalized into, hey, hi, hello, with even very little emphasis on tonal value. You could say hello 5 different ways, it's okay. But even if
it just all means the same thing.
It all means the same thing.
It's in reference to everyone. There's no distinction to
right.
How you're addressing who you're addressing.
So without that protocol, and the protocol is so difficult because there's a lack of humility, so people don't like to be told what to do. Even when they're in your own space, like I was speaking of, that you like in social media. People will come into your space and start talking reckless to you. So they don't even try to find out the protocols of your own space before they just do whatever they feel like doing. Or like even my work in I've dealt with a lot of sick people who get very upset when they're not allowed to bring their dysfunction into the space. When I say, wait a minute, we're going to address that, we're going to deal with that, then they get upset. Or they start telling me what they've always done. What's the big deal? I've always been like, this is just how I am. And why are you here? It's kind of like what you asked earlier. Why do they even come if they're not coming to grow? Good free food. And there's no protocol of some of the teachings where you're required to give. Like when we were speaking about a saw set. You're just not going to get a saw set teachings. Your feet tired?
No, just I'm shifty. That's okay.
You're shifty, huh?
There's this idea of the inferior, superior line, right? So if I see myself as consistently inferior, how does that affect the way I interact with other men? Or even interact with other people? Because I don't see myself as being able to, speak into the same idea of respect when we approach each other, having a protocol. So if I consistently see myself as inferior based on what society projects onto me.
Hey.
That's their thing.
If I see myself as inferior, won't I always approach a situation without knowing how to be cordial, without knowing how to distinguish, well, I need to have this protocol here or not? I mean, because I don't see myself as having that level of etiquette. I don't see myself, I don't know if I'm making a valid point. Because I've been brought up to think, or raised to think that,
Come in. Leaning out of frame.
I've been... if I'm raised to think that, a certain type of person is superior in their interaction, in their ability to communicate with others, and I'm inferior, then want to disrupt the way I see myself interacting with even my kin or people who are within my community, I won't know what to do.
Well, you'll never have a community as long as you consider those overlords to be the definers of your culture. That's the problem. Like when we spoke about polygyny, and I was like, you can't bring Western thought into a traditional polygynous situation. It don't work. So it's the same thing when you're trying to build an indigenous community. You can't build it and still hold on to your Western values and then say, but this is what they taught me. Well, then go back to them. If they're always going to be your reference point, or your defeat is always your reference point, then we can't do anything with you. For me, I don't care what they taught me. I'm doing what I'm going to do, right or wrong. At least it's mine. And that's really how you die a warrior's death. Warrior's death is like, your last moment, in your last breath, you completed the mission that you set out to do. So whether it kills me or not, if my mission is to knock down this flagpole right here, and and let's say in my last breath, the cops comes around me, don't touch that flag. And and they shoot me, but I knock it down, like while I'm coming down together, and I die when it comes down. Beautiful death. Beautiful death. Right, I become a martyr. Nothing wrong with that. So that's what I'm saying. Even with the culture, when you're trying to build community, you're trying to build something, you can't pull in those values because what you're trying to do is keep who you are now alive. That person has to die in order for you to build something of your own. And most importantly, if you were raised within an oppressive system that taught you to think you were inferior to someone or something else, because inferior is not the same as subordinate. I have individuals who are subordinate to me, but they're not inferior to me. It's just a role that, we contracted. But yeah, if you have that, you can't build anything.
But so you're saying that you don't subscribe to that, but you had to have some sort of reflection and be able to identify, reflecting on self, and be able to identify that society is overloading this type of, thought form onto me. So I have to be able to pull away from that.
Right.
Or maybe not. Maybe you grew up in a family where that was not the culture. That was not the norm. So you knew how to distinguish, differentiate between, what society wants to impose on you and what, was created within you. So that, that, but some people do not. So how, if they're coming for the food and they're coming for nourishment, but still are not able to pull away and observe themselves and identify that there is a dysfunction in the thinking that has to change. I mean,
then we don't feed them. We don't keep making excuses for people who are ignoring rights right in front of their faces, then maybe they are inferior. And they need to die out. At this point, watch one slave movie. Just one. Anyone. Pick anyone. Doesn't matter. And what will it tell you? That there were values and things that were forced upon you. What do you want to do with that information? Do you now have to watch 6 more slave movies until you get it? You know? So there are certain people who read one book and then, oh my goodness. Or we'll watch one lecture on food. We'll watch Dr. Sebi once. Like, they've been lying to us. Well, what else have they lied about? And it takes them on a mission. And then there's some, in all honesty, who really just don't care that much. They pretend like they do, but they don't really care. It's just not that important. So we spend a lot of time making fools out of ourselves, trying to service them, the ones who don't really care, and they're playing us. Hey, brother. All right. Yeah, you teaching. All right, sis. Yeah. Oh, what's this? What's that? Vegan what? Raw vegan brownies? Okay. You ever had them? Nah, I tried some. Playing games. So you have to put them to task immediately. You know, it's almost like gang culture. You know, make them put in work immediately to see where their investment is. Or like what I spoke to you about with the family. It's like, no, women cannot come if they haven't invested. No, you can't just walk into a store and say, I want to be part business owner. I want you to take me seriously. You show me how serious you are about this. And that's usually when things change. So I understand that mentality is present, but if you want to remove it, you can. You can deprogram. But many, when you start talking, I did an Instagram post about that recently, that very same thing. How American culture gave you garbage, gave you venom, you know, and you took it, and I said you lusted for it. You really wanted it. Even though you say it's a problem, you didn't, but you wanted it. So now that you have it, and now that it's wreaking havoc in your life, now you want to come into my space with your dirty self, because you're dripping with Western slime. You want to come into my place with your dirty self, do what you feel like doing, and then when it's called out, you want to get upset and start telling me about how you're a victim. But you're re-enslaving yourself. You know, it's selective re-enslavement. I don't have to have any pity for that. Not if I really want to build something.
Maybe I'm hung up on why someone would seek out information that's supposed to assist you to self-actualize and actually not do it. Maybe that's what stuck with me. Why seek it out? Why constantly associate with it but not use it?
Some people are really distracted. Alright? How many times have you visited the Empire State Building? Or the Statue of Liberty? On your own, not as part of a school trip that you had to conduct.
Sorry, it's a fly. What do you mean I was required to go there?
Right, exactly. So why wouldn't you take advantage of these great things about being in New York? You know? So it's like, it's what you place your value in. So people will come around, like I said, it's free food. Why would you come around and self-actualizing experience and things like that? It's a way to confirm that you're doing something. So that way when you're asked, you can say, well, yeah, I was there. Or like when people get a little older and they're like, I need to start getting my life together. So they start going to church. They don't start doing nice things for people. They don't become more spiritual. They might not even get their diet together. They just say, I'm going to go to church. At least I'm in the building, so at least whatever fortune and we'll say even blessings that are allowed to the people of this space, maybe I'll get some of that. Because at least I was here. But of course you won't, because it has to live inside of you. You know, like I say, you can't wear it like a shirt, it's got to be in you.
Yes.
So people will come around this information. Plus, you also have people who are just disruptive, right? So it's like they see we're doing something positive and progressive, and they still have a Willie Lynch agenda inside of them. So they want to take up space and play around so you don't really reach where you're supposed to reach. But they want to be a part of it because they want to know what's going on. But there's a part of them that wants to destroy it. You know, look at, like, if you introduce, like, even some of the protocols we spoke about, right? If we went on a blog talk radio show or YouTube right now, and I said, you know what, from now on, we should always greet women this way and greet men this way. You know, the majority of the people who would call in would start telling us about how rotten men are and how women don't respect men. They would come up with all these deflective arguments that have nothing to do with what we're talking about. Well, I don't have a problem greeting somebody like that, but how are they going to greet me? Are they going to show that same respect? You know, they would just start coming up with all these straw man arguments. You know, because ultimately, they're so miserable in their own selves that they just want to disrupt anything that seems like it's moving past their own misery. That's what you were talking about earlier with the internal harmony. That not being present, you know, that's all the difference in the world.
But you're being offered a pivotal opportunity to actually make the change. Even if it's just with your words out, which may not be enough, but it's a start. So if you're being offered that, why? So how does that relate to movement in terms of making sure, you know, once the momentum starts again, that it becomes, you know, no more excuses, no more falling back on, you know, what our thinking is, but moving forward and being able to do and create.
Start with the wording. Women's group.
Women's.
What's a woman?
What's a woman?
If you're not a woman, you can't come. Then, of course, someone said, well, who defines what a woman is? The leadership. Who told them? Their culture. End story. My elders told me what a woman is. My ancestors told me what a woman and what a man is. That's it. When you let any old kind of scraggly thing come in, then the situation becomes scraggly. You know, it becomes raggedy. Because women are only going to organize for womanly reasons. Not just, I want to learn how to crochet, you know, how to do rituals, or how to wrap my hair, you know, whatever. Because I see all kind of funny stuff with women's groups. You know, really non-important things in the whole scheme, in the context. There's nothing that's actually feeding the context that keeps them alive. It's just a lot of self-aggrandizing. If you're not feeding the house, the home, and the community that's sustaining you, there'll be no women's group and there'll be no women, you know? You have to put water back into the well. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it because it's an opportunity to, you know, make what I would like to have, you know, make it, you know, interact with it, see it grow, see it develop. You know, this whole idea of women coming together, not just women, because the idea is women, but their families are, you know, integrated into everything that will be happening within the group. It's, you know, it would be at the core of it, essentially. So, I don't know, I guess that's what I'm excited about. Being able to see, you know, that idea of harmony and people just being able to bring what they have and instinctively just know how to use it to create a space where things can happen, things can be done, just off of your genius matching with mine.
What kind of things?
What kinds of things?
Yeah.
Different things. You know, opportunities for teaching, you know, children what cooperative economics looks like through what we call susu. Offering children an opportunity to see us do that and be able to, create something of their own, that mimics it. So teach them about money, learning about money ourselves and what that means to us and how we can use our families to generate money and to generate, stability, financial stability.
So, to what end though? We teach the children is, what if the children go off to leave the community?
What do they want?
Go off to leave the community and have no loyalty to it? Then
what if they go off and leave the community and have no loyalty?
Yeah, like how do you instill that sense of we're teaching? It's almost like when you give a spirit an offering. To a spirit, I'm giving you this offering. You name who you're giving it to, what I'm giving it, and for what purpose. So it's the same thing when you're giving something to a child. And you say, like, we're teaching you susu, we're teaching you this in cooperative economics, we're going over these Kwanzaa rituals so you can be this. And if you're not this, then what? What happens? Do we still love them anyway?
Women, so more than likely love them. But I feel like if you're instilled with men do love their children.
Sick of your women. I didn't catch it at first.
What, you didn't catch it at first?
Yeah, what you said. Because we're women, so of course we're going to love them.
I guess that's going from my experience too. The fathers that I've experienced and the uncles I've experienced, it's like, if you're not doing what I need you to do, I can cut you off very easily because you're not going along with the program.
So you're not helping to the community.
Exactly. This order and this discipline.
I guess somebody needs to do it, huh? Somebody's got to make the hard choices.
But that's what I say. Women will be like, it's my child.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that there's no love there, but I guess the love is,
That's been kind of our downfall, though, don't you think? Like, our women are so warm, they always embrace those who should be dying. Always the nanny. Mama Pearl.
Maybe it's the fear of having, nurtured this child to this age and then, cutting off any nurturing at all. You probably will feel responsible if some harm were to come to them. Or there's a fear of it.
Well, you would be to a degree. I mean, everybody comes for their own mission. But if you're raising your youth and you're telling them, everything I'm giving you is for this purpose, and they don't do it, or they don't pursue the purpose, or they just leave their community, yeah, you have to look at yourself and say, is it something I considered incorrectly? Is the community unhealthy that I'm trying to get them involved in? Maybe they're involved beyond me. That's to do that. Your children are supposed to continue what you do forward. Of course, in the West, it's like, it's the Wild West, every person for themselves. So even children are taught, like, just do whatever you feel like doing. You don't have to follow your parents' path or even be a part of their community. Even from a sexual perspective, like, you don't even have to continue your line if you don't feel like it. If you don't feel like continuing your family line, just let it end. Of course, in unhealthy, you have nations within nations. So you have healthier nations here that don't advocate that type of lunacy.
Because there is this expectation that the child, like you said, will be the setback from vaccine.
Right.
That the child is expected to take what you've taught and established and maintain it and expand it.
Right. Why else would you have them? So that idea of continuation and forward thinking is present. So the women's group, if there's women, they're already going to be thinking like that. If they're not women, then they're just going to want to learn some rituals and things for themselves. Those are the ones that will sit. If you have a phone call, which I don't really want to do too many phone calls this time around, because that's how people hide, and they say, I'm just listening. They want to size everybody up from a distance, which is so cruel. So you have everybody else working and running and operating, and you just sitting there watching them, and then deciding if you want to stay or be a part or leave, but meanwhile you're not adding on to the success of the moment. And they usually have those weak things. They say like, well, you know, it takes me a while to warm up to people, and really they have no social skills. They're dysfunctional. But they don't speak to that. They just say, it takes me a while to warm up to people, and you know, I'm a little standoffish, and then don't be a part of a group then. You know, it requires, like you said, collective work and responsibility, a group effort. But women would understand that, because women are more in tune with the need. When you have children, you're more in tune of like, we need some things, and you know, my children need mates, and I want them to mate within the sanity of what it is that I hold dear. So let me connect with other people who think like me and connect with their children, and let's continue this web forward, because when you create family, it's really when you create serious power. Like I had said that once, like even in our news, what if everybody married each other? Imagine how much stronger we would be. You know, like your uncle is a mechanic. Well, now I have a mechanic in the family. You know, your auntie is a stockbroker. I have a stockbroker I can actually trust. You know, your grandfather is a doctor, like, or mine, and like the web just goes. And then my auntie, who maybe is a lawyer, can link with your cousin who's an athlete who needs a sports lawyer. Like, you create these very intricate and amazing webs, you know, when you just create family.
That would work with me if you're coming from that common imperative that you're talking about. Coming from where everybody sees what's this protocol, what is the common language, what's the common culture. Then, you know, you don't have to teach it. It's kind of like you don't have to start from zero.
Right.
Because it's already, that foundation is there already.
So how will you instill that in the women's group?
Well, there has to be, a protocol for, you know, being welcomed into the group, or so you have to be a part of it. You have to be.
But being a member is easy.
You have to have a family. You have to be a woman who's moving towards having and maintaining a family, or that being already in place.
But just because you have a family doesn't mean that you're still operating within this contextual paradigm. Sure. It's my job. Security.
So how would I create that in the women's group?
Well, first, again, establishing that there has to be women. Then the I quickly turns into we. So quickly. But when you have one adult in the room and a bunch of adult women, and you got a bunch of adult girls, then it's very difficult. Lead by example. What do we do?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Oh God. that not the idea, but experiences. Creating experiences where we're able to articulate exactly what our expectations, what is the protocol.
Okay. How are we doing?
By living it, by actually engaging in it.
But how? Like, what we do? Not you. You're the good one. Well, if you look at just how you and I interact in order to build and create something, that lets you know what you should be looking for in a woman. Like, you start with what we do when we do it. How do we greet each other? What do we do on Mondays? How do we wake up? How do we go to bed? What do we do on Saturdays? What do we do on Sundays? I mean, those are the things that you tap into, you know, because you're displaying, you're putting the culture on display to a degree. And when you put the culture on display, then now it becomes real easy what even a group of women are supposed to do next in regards to that. Because even if, like, let's say if there's a certain thing we do on Saturdays and you all meet up on Saturdays and you know, well, hey, at a certain time, maybe it's noon, we do a sun salutation or, you know, this or that. That's just a part of our culture. Then it makes things much easier. As opposed to always trying to reinvent the wheel and reinventing that will to go places that really don't mean anything to anyone and that haven't been blueprinted for you.
So you literally have to show people what you do every day.
No, not.
What your rights are, what your routines are,
What people?
The expectations.
Not all people.
Not all people.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that to that degree, but I would say, like, even this right here, we're talking about the women's group, but we're showing that it's a collaborative effort between male and female. That's culture. How many women groups are established just for women alone?
Yes.
Even men's group, you know, you're establishing a man's group, and you may even be working towards financial freedom and liberation, but it's just going to be a bunch of free men. You know, you want some women there too? So at some point you got to check in with the women and see what's going on with them in order to also provide solutions for them, or it's going to be a sausage party. I'm not interested in that from a cultural or personal standpoint. I didn't like that sausage party thing.
Feels like you were accusing them, I guess. I don't know.
And
Maybe it's too simple. Maybe because I'm not even thinking that that's like a necessity. What you're saying to me it is, and I need to be able to see that.
Yeah, how do you share culture beyond the aesthetic? How do we greet one another? Like I said, how do we lead one another? Those healthy aspects of your culture, as minuscule as they may seem, those are the ones that start making you healthier. Like when we were saying earlier, like there is a way to greet female elders versus male elders, or people of your same age class. That by itself, it makes you healthier. It starts to heal sores inside of you. Even saying the language, if you don't even know what you're really saying. You know, if you're working or you could be reading a book or pataki, but you start saying them and you know, something washes over you. You start to feel cleaner, you know. So even like I was saying, yeah, but if you see an elder and, you know, you have muachi, you know, or muaha, and, you know, you might be saying good morning or good evening or muajo, good evening, you know, good afternoon, or that would be like good evening actually. But when you put that elder piece in it, the feeling is different. Muajo eja, muajo iniya, and it's like now I'm thinking different, just from the tones of it, just because I'm breaking the paradigm of how I'm usually communicating, and I'm putting myself into a more natural tone set. So now other things start to come to me that may not even be related to what I'm talking about. It's healing by itself. Because it doesn't give space for other things. It's like when the two guys were over here taking a selfie and they were all pulled up and hugged up and everything. And I said, no, I'm just going to stare at you. That was healing in that moment for the images that would have been concreted in my mind. You know? So I think even the smallest parts of culture, you don't have to sit and talk about so much. Like, okay, culturally, if we were forming a women's group, and I'm saying if you're talking to the women, we should be doing this, women. We should. It might just be like language classes. Why do we eat what we eat? You know? Like, starting there. How is it that we can carry so much on our heads and it doesn't spill over on uneven roads, unpaved roads? Let's talk about that. You know? And then you start really just speaking about your culture, and other things become very obvious because it dispels the demons. It doesn't leave room for them. Then you automatically just become more clear, because like even something like that with the greetings of different people of different age group and sex, like I said, it does frame out. Keep sliding out of frame. It does frame out the cultural paradigm, but it also begins to start giving you some clues to how you should raise children and the conversations you should have with them automatically. The fact that there is a greeting, so that means you don't go without acknowledging somebody when they walk in your company. You know, back home, like especially in Nigeria, they do that mainly. If you're walking and someone's walking towards you and they trip, not even fall, but just like stumble, you say, "Oh, sorry." You know, you like say, "Oh, I'm sorry." If they trip and I'm saying sorry to them, that's protocol. That's normal. You know, what we do here, we laugh. Or we pull out our cameras and start filming. You know what I mean? But somebody else trips and you say, "Oh, sorry. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry that you just missed a step." You know?
It's that's very much protocol in the Caribbean. But taking on the language and looking at how it addresses gender and age differences. I didn't even think of. Well, you know, I speak English, so I wouldn't.
You wouldn't think of it in English, right? English doesn't make room for it.
No, I mean Spanish does, at least when it comes to
right,
gender.
It does. Yeah. And age. Yeah. About you and these women.
What do you mean?
The epidemic.
You said the epidemic.
We're getting the women's group started. So I guess we could tell them that while we're filming. The women's group is coming back. We're doing things different. There's going to be an application process. And it's going to be very action-based and less, so it's going to be a bit more integrated and experiential as opposed to how it was before, where it was primarily more therapeutic. You'll find your therapy in the work, and if you don't want to work, then you won't be in the group. Is that too harsh? You want to say it the way you want to say it?
That's not too harsh, I agree.
Okay, well, you're probably more harsh than I am, that's why.
Soft and loving.
You are. Like you said, the child could be a total serial killer. It's still my baby though. I remember when he loved oranges so much. I'm gonna bring some oranges to the jail.
Did you talk about the registration form? It's really important.
Yeah.
I really hope that once the information is shared on social media and the links are shared, that women actually go in and complete the forms and share the information we're asking you to share, so that it helps us, understand how to move forward with who we have in the collective.
Right.
That's really crucial. And when we ask about what your talents and gifts are, share, because it's about work and it's about taking your genius and using it.
There's also the red wrap piece that a lot of you so-called carrying out. This is also the red wrap piece that a lot of you have not. A lot of you should move on. Let me just put it that way. iNewLifeGlobal.org/red wrap. Go fill out the form, and I hope you don't think. Oh God, I don't even want to say what. I'm like, I hope you don't think it's a hustle for me to collect maxi pads. Like I'm opening up a maxi pad store. We didn't ask for any money. Though it was suggested recently that we should have just did a GoFundMe, but I wanted people to get more like personally involved. But we're doing the collections. We'll be giving the address probably like tomorrow or day after. And then we have the actual distribution events in May. All right, so be a part of the Red Wrap. That's so important, man. Especially for those who want to be a part of the Anu Women's Group. Like, it's kind of weird that you would want to be a part of that, but then wouldn't want to contribute to women in general, especially women who are in need. Homeless women who need feminine hygiene products. I'm gonna try to say that without saying too much. I don't be too critical.
Which is the purpose, but it also offers an opportunity for you to get started with the work.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that's why the GoFundMe wasn't, important at that time, because it's about literally making an effort to go out there and collect the items and put that energy into, making space in your home for it, sending it off, and even sharing the information with colleagues or family members who, want to be a part of something so powerful. So,
right. Yeah, well put. That was tight. You do some amazing stuff when you don't question.
I opened myself, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I know white is important too.
What's wrong?
What's vibrating? Something was vibrating.
Probably the little boy hit the thing or something.
That's what it was? It came from over here, so it's like, what is that?
From his bum?
Yes, my left butt cheek. So,
Okay. We have to decipher what does the left butt cheek represent. What helps you to actualize your woman?
Funny enough, it might sound real simplistic, but being in the space with a man.
Sounds like the right answer. You feel like a woman right now?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Completely.
What you gonna do with all the power?
Well, I'm going to go back home and make Jenga games for my students. And come up with ways to work with these women.
Okay.
Also writing into passage that you told me I should kind of pluck out and put up there. Even do a little video.
Uh-oh.
Oh gosh.
I think it's a good idea.
Thank you.